Okay, so we're delighted to welcome everybody back to this week's episode. It's a special this week. It's the women in sport and I suppose women in running as well. But I think this topic covers many sports. So as introduced, we have three guests this week. We have Fiona, Sandra and Orla. So we'll let you guys introduce yourselves maybe first, no particular order. Whoever's bravest can go first maybe. Fiona.
I'll go first. How are you? So I'm Fiona O'Donnell, and thanks very much for having me on, lads. So I work with women exclusively. I used to work with men and women, but I noticed that really women were kind of being dealt with in a way that was a little bit too similar to how we coach men, and the approach I think in a lot of cases is very different depending on how old a woman is, what stage of her life she's at. So my focus is really on behavior change and taking a woman's entire environment and her lifestyle into account, and trying to get her as strong as possible, be it in running, be it physically strong, or be it in whatever sports that she wants to engage in. So that's what I do.
And what's your sports and background, Fiona?
Triathlon. I started from a background in running, in marathon running, albeit slowly. And I'm doing, well, as a teenager, I played rugby and competed in taekwondo. And I'm back now doing a little bit of martial arts in the form of jiu-jitsu. So starting from scratch again as a white belt.
Very good. Orla, do you want to introduce yourself next maybe?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Orla Clancy. I am a personal trainer. I work primarily with women. I do have a few male clients, but my main focus is on women. And kind of similar to yourself, Fiona, I suppose my background is kickboxing. I was on the Irish kickboxing team for a number of years before I started my own family. And to be honest, I suppose because it was a mixed sport, I mean, I felt fine in there. I felt represented and all that. But it was only after my kids were born that I saw the difference in how women need to how women approach their training, from everything with regard to postpartum, returning to exercise, returning to sport, postpartum, navigating parenthood, the mental load. All of that was just a shock to my system, mainly after my second son versus my first son, because after my first son, he was like an accessory with me, came everywhere with me. But when I had two kids, it just became a completely different dynamic. And I just got more and more interested in that area then, working with women and understanding that, you know, that no excuses mantra used to drive me nuts, because we have plenty of reasons why things don't work and there are plenty of barriers, and it's about trying to break down those barriers and make exercise and sport accessible to women, and having just a different lens, I suppose. So it's been a really interesting journey. I'm no longer competing in kickboxing. My sport of choice right now is Olympic lifting, which is really empowering, and I enjoy it. So it's good crack, with less pressure than, you know, my pre-kids days of competing on the kickboxing team. So yeah, that's me.
And Sandra, finally.
Great. Hi guys. Thanks a million for having me on. I'm probably dissimilar to Orla and Fiona in that I don't work with women as part of my profession. I am a full-time working mom, but I suppose my contribution here is going to be, I've had 3 boys, 3 C-sections, and I can contribute to a little bit of background as to how I came back to sport after having after having 3 kids as well. Sporting background, I suppose I've been involved with sport since I've been about 6 years of age. I used to do athletics up until mid-teens. I took up hockey then, where I played on Munster hockey teams from under 16 to senior level. Unfortunately, I tore my cruciate twice, and then I actually went on to have my first baby. Returned to hockey for a little while, but just found it very difficult to commit to a team sport. So I ended up then going back to athletics again, just longer distance athletics as well. From a coaching perspective, I've coached teenage girls, schoolgirls hockey. I've coached university men's hockey, and I've also just the last couple of years been involved with my my middle child's hurling and football team as well. So I suppose I've got a little bit of background there in boys v girls v men as well, and being involved in women's teams as well.
Very good, very good. Good spread there. Good knowledge all across the team. So I think we picked the right people, all right, in fairness.
Yeah, I think so. Look, we've said this before we came on air. Myself and Brian are kind of going to take a little step back, obviously, from this because the listeners may or may not know, but myself and Brian are men. So, we are not experts in this subject. So we're going to take a step back. But I cannot wait because I coach my daughter's under-8s football team. I also kind of do fitness coaching with the Glanmire intermediates as well. So in the ladies. So I actually am really looking forward to this for what I can learn from it. So this is going to be an education for myself and Brian. And we've got a lot of messages before the show from men who are really looking forward to it. Want to know what they can do with their daughters in the future, as in what, how we can help our daughters and stuff like that, but also what our wives and everything, have to deal with sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So with that, right, what we're going to do, we're going to break the show up into a couple of parts. What we're going to start it off is with kind of early, I would say childhood and up to kind of teenagers and stuff like that, and from the start of sports and the dropout rate and how we can keep the kids in and difficulties that kids meet and stuff like that. I said Brian might pop in with questions here and there, but we're going to literally leave it to yourselves where possible. So this is your show today. So, Sandra, we'll start with yourself, all right? Because you are, as you said, you've coached, a lot of teenage girls and younger and in sports. And I think we'll start with the first question. We'll start is with the difficulty in keeping these girls in sport, and the reasons for this and what we can do to help it. Do you think? No, we're not going to come up with answers here for debate the band, but we're going to try and figure out some stuff anyway.
Yeah. I think in general, women, girls sports, if you look around at the moment, is apart from before you even go into discussions on puberty and periods and self-confidence and body image, you also have the experience that girls get at a young age in sport versus the boys. They tend to have less better we don't have the same facilities as the boys. They don't get the same optimal training times as the boys. I just take example of our own club. So if you take a boy and a girl in our club who are into the GAA, my boys will train twice a week, where they'll train for an hour and a quarter on a Tuesday and a Saturday. If there's a football match or a hurling match, that will happen on a Saturday and there won't be any training. So they have time, my middle child and my older fella both play soccer as well, because there's scope there to do that. Whereas if you look at the girls, if they want to play football in camogie, you're looking at 2 nights training for the camogie, you're looking at 2 nights training for the football. So that's 4 days training on what I would kind of nearly deem the one sport. So that means that you've less opportunity for girls who might want to play football, or if they had music or any other sport going on, that's going to put pressure on them and obviously their parents as well. So if you've got a girl who's training 4 days a week versus a boys 2 days a week, who's more likely to give up a sport? It's going to be the girl. If you look at even the training times are often really crappy times during the middle of the day. And again, similarly, you could have 2 matches at the weekend. I compared myself now. I have 3 boys. I have friends who have girls, and they're run ragged if they have 2 girls with matches, so many matches at the weekend as well. So the pressure can come from home as well, going, we can't keep this up. Whereas a boy can keep the 2 of them up because there's less involved. And even if you fast forward that to senior level, if you saw what happened this year with the ladies camogie and football, 2023, and you had clash of matches where you had Cork players who had a match, there was 4 dual players who had the match, a camogie and a football match on at the same time, which is absolute lunacy. That happened twice. You had one of the girls having to play in Porky Creeve, hop in a car, drive 3 hours to go away to make the second half of a football match. If that was the boys, there is no way that would have happened. So even before going into the actual problems that girls face, this is one of the things. Now I do think it's become very progressive. The associations are now kind of gearing towards a one club I know Douglas are doing it where, you know, they're trying to amalgamate the hurling and the football and the camogie all into one thing, and that should hopefully alleviate those problems. But I would say that's definitely a contribution, because you've got girls there who, you know, they're probably forced to pick a sport, and it may not necessarily be the sport that all their buddies are picking. And for girls, especially more than boys, it is about social, you know, it is a very social aspect, especially at a young age. And what you want to do is you want to keep kids, you want to keep it fun, you want to keep it interesting. And if you're having somebody who's training, a female who's training twice as much as a boy, it becomes less fun as well, and you're taking that aspect away from them. So before you even delve into the actual issues, I mean, you do have that. I don't know if girls, if you've seen that side of things with any of the sports that you were involved in as well, when it comes to, I know for hockey over the years, like God, it's hugely improved again, because, you know, the girls hockey has progressed significantly over the last couple of years. But certainly when I was a teenager, like, you had to pay for all your gear, pay for all your trips, and all those kind of things put pressure in other areas as well. And, you know, that can lead to problems as well, where people are giving up before you even look at any of the other aspects that can contribute to girls giving up.
Fiona?
Yeah, I think
Oh, let's go on.
I think that I think what I'm hearing from you, Sandra, is that there's far more attention paid to the fact that, or an awareness of the fact that the boys are likely to be playing more than one sport. So the scheduling, there's much more attention paid to it. Whereas with the girls, is that what you're saying? Whereas with the girls, it's kind of oh well, they might be doing one, and sure, throw it in whenever, and no kind of thought given to scheduling. Is that kind of?
I think it definitely makes it harder for girls to do more than one sport, because you know, when you do have situations like, I lived in East Cork as well, and I know the girls situation down there was the same, where there was actually, they had to go to a separate club to play football, whereas they'd only did camogie, whereas with the boys they might have had the two there. Now again, in the last year they've actually brought that in, so it is progressing. I think that we'll see that getting better, because I think people are becoming more aware, and I think it is more about, you know, people are conscious of this, but it's going to take a while to make that a little bit better.
Just on that there, Sandra, sorry, like, I see it in my own club, like the problem with a lot of times as well is the clubs are owned by the boys, you know, and the camogie and the football which have started a lot later, you know, not 20 odd 30 years ago. GA's gone on for 100 years ago. So the boys own the facilities, so they get preference. And I've seen it where we wanted to train at a certain times, like, no, the intermediates or boys are training that time, they have the preference of it, you know. So they are treated at times in GA as second-class citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it is getting better. It would have been, I suppose, growing up, like, you know, in my era, camogie and they weren't as popular as they were now. Thank God that's changed again, that there was the, you know, inverted commas, the certain sports that girls should play, and that's all changing now. And I think that's all down to, you know, the number of role models that girls now actually have, compared to when I was growing up. Sonia O'Sullivan was probably the only female, you know, standout female sports person of our time. Whereas now, if you look around what girls have to look up to now, oh my God, there's so many people, you know, even in all different sports. Like, you've got Katie Taylor, you've got Katie McCabe in the soccer. All you have to do is look at the lineup in Budapest last week, and you can see you've a string of female athletes to pick from. And I think that's brilliant for female sport, because the more people like that you see in the sport, the more people are likely to take something up and try it and see if they like it. But again, I suppose that comes back to the stigma that would have been around certain sports, like girls shouldn't be playing soccer, girls shouldn't be playing rugby, girls shouldn't be, you know, camogie's too rough, or, you know, Orla, you definitely would have come across it in the kickboxing front, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, I remember, was it 2006 when women were first allowed box? Katie Taylor had to box as pretend to be a boy. And I remember going, oh God, it wouldn't be cool to box. And like, I was kickboxing at that stage, and it still wasn't allowed. So I just find it fascinating to hear that about the GAA. I know the camogie and the football is separate for girls. It's a little bit different in kickboxing. I coach kids at kickboxing, and it's mixed. So it's a mixed class. So we've got boys and girls. So there's a little bit of equal opportunity there. But what I notice, what happens is the boys, they kind of start off, when they start at 5, they start off kind of like for like in terms of strength and ability, and building skills and all that. But when they hit a certain age, then the boys shoot up and the girls don't, and it becomes pretty apparent that the boys are probably stronger. So it's harder to manage in that respect. But I find it quite difficult to hear what you're saying, Sandra, that the lack of respect that's there for girls, I suppose, in that sport. It's hard to hear. Like I would find it hard as a parent of a girl trying to manage that, and because I've got friends as well, my kids' friends in school and all that, and they talk about having to buy 2 sets of gears as well, 2 sets of gear for the girls when they're doing GAA. And I never thought of it like you just said, Sandra, about having double the schedule as well. But that's tough to manage for sure.
And I think, to be fair, like Sandra gave examples there of what happened with some of the Cork team this year for 4 players. So like if that's happening at, we'll say, the top level, where you would expect that they're getting the best of treatment, it can only get worse, I suppose, if it's dripping down into the lower levels, if it's that bad at the top, very visible level, so that's a huge concern, I would think. And it's it's out there, but there's more needs to be done on structure and organization, I think, and cooperation as well, I suppose, in some ways. I think I'm going to make a statement here, and it's a question really in some ways, but again, Sandra, you touched on it there about the World Championships last week, and you could rattle off 4. It was the women actually who were the stars of the event, as you said. So many great role models there: Rashida Akaleka, Ciara McGeegan, the women's relay team, Sarah Lavin. What a story! We could keep going. As you said, Sonia O'Sullivan before, Katrina Kiernan, but yet still, like all the sports, like the fallout in teenage, and even the attracting of teenage girls to the sports. But here we have a sport in particular running where the women are really leading the way. There's some shining examples, but yet the same problems still exist. So I suppose my question or statement maybe would be like, how do we attract teenage girls to sport, and how do we keep them in the sport?
I think what I've seen, and just in our little bubble down in West Cork, what we've seen a massive explosion of is women's rugby, to the point where we ended up with 2 of the women's teams facing each other in the final, in the national finals, because we'd so many people on board. And I think the big factor that I'm seeing there is that the coaches are very, very heavily invested in developing skills, because I think historically, if we look at women's sports, it was all about just taking part, right? Whereas the coaches that I've seen in Clonakilty are very, very heavily invested in skills development. So it's not just about taking part, and it's not like I think it used to be black or white, right? It was you're either here to take part and to just play, or you want to compete and you want to be at the top of your game. And there was no gray area, there was no in between, as opposed to the structure that's there now that I'm seeing is that it's very much, let's bring everybody on together, let's develop everybody's skills equally, and be that on the track in hurdling or be it wherever else, skill development, giving girls autonomy, allowing them to better themselves, creating an environment that's actually fun for them to be there, but it's fun and it has I'm going to get better at this, and I can be like those people that I'm seeing on the television and winning at the races and all that kind of stuff. So I think that that's what has been missing, is that balance of I'm not just here playing with my friends. It's not just for the social thing. I think the work that I'm seeing going in the background from a coaching perspective is making a massive difference, certainly on the rugby scene.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Fiona, are the coaches that are down there with you, are they male or female?
Mixed.
Yeah, I think that's what makes a difference. I think having female coaches represented in female sports, or the female version of whatever the sport is, I'm not even going to get into my question because I'm not a GAA person, but why camogie is not called hurling, I mean, that could be another podcast because rugby is rugby, basketball is basketball, you know.
Yeah.
So I've asked so many people, I've never got an answer, but I just think having female coaches for, like, I see the girls in our kickboxing club and they do look up to us as female coaches. They look up to the male coaches too, don't get me wrong, because, you know, we've got some great coaches, but I think there's a different bond there between, like, the boys would probably look to the male coach sometimes and the girls come to us, but not always. But it just is there, like, if there's stuff going on, I feel like having a female coach for a female athlete is important.
Yeah, I think
you know,
what tends to happen, I suppose, is that, you know, Damien, you said you're involved with your daughters. You know, it is really hard to find coaches. And I, as I said, while I'm criticizing the sport, I'm also in admiration of everybody who participates. It's it's voluntary, and people do give their time. But I suppose that's what does tend to happen, particularly at underage, is that it is people's parents who get involved. I suppose what should really happen there is that, you know, yes, get involved when they're small, but as the age groups go up, that the parents stay behind with a different group. Rather than constantly staying with your own child's group, which I always feel is completely detrimental to their development. Plus, you know, the stigma that surrounds, you know, somebody's parent being their coach as well. It's very hard to manage from that side of things as well. But I think, yes, or I fully agree as well that there should be women involved, but also, I suppose, educating and training men as well on, I suppose, the issues that girls do face.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And like, obviously what happens here is, like, you know, when you do hit the primary and secondary school transition, is you've got girls who start their periods, their body starts to change. Like, I'm even going back to when I used to be running, I developed as a girl much, I suppose, faster than other girls did, and I remember being, like, really conscious of, like, being out in the track, and, like, my legs had all of a sudden started growing hair. I all of a sudden had to wear a bra, whereas some of my friends didn't. And, like, it just, there was nobody there to, you know, you were trying to nearly hide these things, or you'd be embarrassed that you had more hair on your legs. And these are the things that now I couldn't give a monkey. So I'm 3 kids. I think your dignity got left on the door of the hospital when you went in on your first. But as you know, these are things that girls face, that, you know, they're really embarrassed, they're paranoid about leaking during their period, during training sessions, or you know, I know we talk about not just being social, but girls are very, very social. And I suppose it comes to finding that balance in coaching between, you know, competitiveness and fun, and particularly for young kids. Like, that's what we always try to bring to and it should be boys or girls, is that you want the kids to keep coming back year on year and week on week. Like, the kids who are standout kids at under 7, under 8 may not necessarily be your star performers for under 15 or 16. It could be the little boy or the little girl who was really shy, but all of a sudden came into their own years later. So you want to keep all these people, you know, week after week, and you do want to make it fun, but also address, you know, it's I suppose it is that's a skill in itself as a coach. How do you challenge the competitive kids but keep the fun, you know, keep it fun then for the ones who, and keep it interested. So again, I suppose that comes down to coaching and going on courses, which not every sport, like the GA, in fairness, is excellent for providing training. Like, you know, even if you're coaching under 5s or under 6s, there's a basic foundation course you have to do. I don't think that's there in the FAI. I don't know if it's there in other bodies, you know, for different sports, but I think it does, like, having people, and particularly male, trained in the issues that females are facing would definitely help. But will a teenage girl come to a male coach and say, hey, I've got my period, or I've got really bad cramps? Probably not.
No, and
I think,
sorry, Orla, just quick,
no,
because, like, obviously, we're lucky in the coaching team that I have with Fia's team. Is like, we have 3 girls and we have 3 men, and, you know, they're young enough where we have no, you know, we don't have issues at the moment with puberties or periods or anything like that, but that's going to come in the next few years. And I think it's very important for us, and we've looked at that we do constantly have that strong women's presence in the team, and they build a relationship with them. And that's why we kind of at the moment to move up the grades up to a certain time, and then we step away. But we kind of build a relationship with the 6 coaches and the team so that they kind of build trust in with us then, and that you would hope some of the girls might eventually be able to, I think they're still going to navigate to women naturally, but that they would still have no problems, you would hope, with coming to the men as well. So I just think that is kind of an important thing with teams. And I know you said that, you know, it's the detriment to the kids having their parents in it. Fia probably wouldn't say that because I give out to Fia more than I
being a coach and a parent is tough.
Yeah, I think like on that whole topic, and as you said, the areas of change as a kid moves on from primary to secondary school. Like, I suppose the question again is like, how do clubs and people? Can you hear us? Yeah, but like, how can we make the environment maybe a more comfortable environment too? That it's okay that this is happening. How do we make kids understand, and maybe those around the team, as you said, understand that this is normal. This happens, and you're very welcome here still. You know, rather than someone deciding, even potentially someone who has a great future ahead, deciding at that stage, because this is happening to me, I'm going to drop out. You know, is there any things you can think of that would make the environment better?
I've a couple of points on that. I think the easiest thing in the world to do for females who are headed for, you know, puberty and periods and all that is to not have white clothes. And then you hear the likes of Breed and Queen Bee Athletics sponsoring teenage girls for their sports bras and making it a cool color, making it a cool something that people wear. I remember, like you said, Sandra, as well. I used to play basketball at that age, and having to wear my first sports bra, I was mortified. I didn't want anybody to know. I wore extra baggy t-shirts so nobody noticed, and I had no one to talk to either. And I was one of the lucky ones. I never gave up sport. I was always interested in it, but I could see my friends in school dropping out because, you know, they didn't want to be running. They didn't want to be seen to be running they didn't have support in the kit that they were wearing. And just hearing athletes having to wear white gear as well, it can be very embarrassing. But then you have to educate the athletes and the coaches that if that happens, if something happens, you know, like a girl who has their period and they leak, that they get supported instead of laughed at, I suppose. And that's a fine balance to make, I suppose, or to have. I heard something recently of a kid on a bus. I don't know, was it someone in America? It was floating around the internet there for a while, but a girl had an accident on a bus with her period, and he gave her his jumper because he said he had an older sister. So that kind of awareness, I think, is important, rather than it being so embarrassing that they'll never come back. You know,
where does that
because
where
it does
come
happen
from, Orla? Sorry, where does that like? And just where should that awareness should it come from? The parents? Should it be education side, or what do you
I think
think?
it would be helpful to have someone come in as an outsider and explain to the coaches and the kids at like a workshop type thing, and then have it as a, you know, remember what such and such said. If anyone has a problem, make sure that you come to us, and our doors are always open if you have an issue that you want to talk about, or if there's a female coach that you prefer to talk to, we can make sure that they're available. And opening that conversation and having it there, maybe sending communications to the parents as well to say that it's happening, or that, you know, this conversation is happening, is what I mean, and making it accessible for them instead of them not knowing who to talk to.
Yeah.
Even having a designated individual that you say, okay, you know, if something happens, you know, okay, girls, you're 12 and this is going to happen soon, and if something happens and you're not expecting it, this is the coach who has spare shorts, this is the coach who has sanitary towels, this is the coach who has, you know, that there is a plan B
procedure.
and
exactly, and having stuff in the bathrooms for sanitary pads, tampons, all that kind of, an extra pair of shorts, you know, whatever the sport needs, is that it's available.
Free stuff as well, you know, that
free, exactly.
I think that all clubs should set aside a small little budget and have these there for girls. Like, I work, like, this is for adults, like I work in a co-working space in town, like the Republic of Work, and they actually provide free tampons in the bathroom, and like we've all got cut out on like, I mean, like I would say, you know, it's happened to me a couple of times in the office where I'm like, oh my god, saves me having to run across town and pick something up. And for young teenage girls, they might be, you know, even with having a designated person, if they got cut out, would they come? You know, some girls might still be like, I'm too embarrassed, I don't want to talk to anybody. Whereas, you know, it's like, I don't have anything with me, or, you know, freaking out, or they could just go and walk into a bathroom. There's something there for them, absolutely free. And
it's a great idea. Yeah.
You know, work on, and like, as in, especially when girls are starting to get their period as well, you have that issue where, particularly when they're just starting, like, you know, a lot of them wouldn't feel comfortable wearing tampons because, you know, it's something completely new. Even the process of inserting a tampon could seem really daunting and frightening to some girls. So you've got the issue as well, like, you know, you'll all go back to days when you wear them. Like, if you had pads on, can you see the pad through my clothes? Can you see the, you know, I remember asking my sister if we were out places, can you check me there? Can you see my pad? Can you, you know, it's very daunting, and there's a lot of stuff going on for girls, you know, when that is happening. And I just think like having a free resource there for people like that, like, it's not that expensive. It just takes, even if it took one small little bit of worry away for a girl, if that happened, that they could just walk into the bathroom themselves without having to go and talk to anybody, and they'd be sorted. You know, or even go, guys, here's, you know, God, you know, if anything happened, there's spare underwear, something in this place, it's here. Nobody, you don't have to come to anybody. You can just, you know, help yourself.
The other thing that's available at the moment, and I've heard clients tell me about their daughters, is period underwear. That's, you can get that in pennies now. Get a Marks and Spencer's, Dunn's, and that's another option for people to even to just have some of that available. Give it as part of the kit, even when their kids are of age, like that they get their sports bra, they get their period underwear, they get their gear. You know, I know it's more expensive on the parents, but it's another option.
I don't think parents care too much about the price of some of these things if it just makes their daughter anyway comfortable anyway, I think, you know. And I think the GA clubs and athletics clubs and your rugby clubs and everything like that should be the exact same mindset. It doesn't matter. These are basic things that need to be within an arm's reach, really, of any training session for ladies.
I think, like, really some great topics brought up there already, and some actually great ideas. You know, I didn't even think of one or two of them, and it sounds so simple, but again, having them in this chat, I'm sure there's some clubs going to go away straight away now and follow up on those little points alone, which is great. I think another one I'd like to throw out there, we had Carrick Devar AC on there one podcast, and you know, they seem to be doing a lot of things right, in fairness. One of the things they actually spoke about on the show is, and if you follow Carrick Devar's social media pages, you'll see this as well. They got the kids kind of very involved in the club, in the actual running of the club in some ways, handed over their Instagram pages to them at times, you know, or have these kind of, you know, I don't know, kind of gimmicks going on where they involve the kids in the activity. And I think that's another one maybe that, you know, can help to make a welcoming environment, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say again.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and it's a very good point. I think having kids involved with a little bit of autonomy over how the sport and the club is run, it just builds inclusivity and trust as well with the kids, that, you know, they're gonna I suppose bring up stuff together then that's important. And yeah, it's a good idea.
Very good. I think, yeah, we spent a good bit of time, unless there's anything in specific that you want to bring up again on that kind of area, before we move on.
Fiona is going to be telling a horror story in a few seconds there now with the light at the moment.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, all good. Yeah, so will we, again, unless there's something, I don't want to be, you know, again, this is your show, I suppose, so myself and Damon are very conscious that we don't want to be skipping anything that needs to be spoken about or anything like that, but just to keep it flowing, if we're happy, we might move it on a small bit so to the next kind of stages. And again, like, is that kind of older teenage years, or again, hand it over to yourselves? I know maybe marriage and kids and dealing with husbands and things like that might become a very
easy part,
big chore.
Yeah, I definitely believe that having girls involved in sport before they become teenagers is the first step in preventing dropout or lack of uptake. I also, I don't know, am I going to be an outlier here in my belief, but I think keeping it fun and not making it too serious in those formative years is important for longevity, because we don't want teenagers to be hitting burnout by the time they're 19 and they're in college and they decide, that don't worry about that anymore. Now I'm off enjoying my friends. If they're doing too much too soon, I think there's a risk of burnout there. And you alluded to that earlier as well, Sandra, with the 2 nights for the 2 sports. I've lost my train of thought there now. What was I going to say?
Just to come in on that as well, as small, when you can think, gather your thoughts again, but that's where I think like events like park run as well are fantastic, where maybe a mother and daughter can go there together, or father and daughter, whatever it is. Like I bring my own son out every now and again. It's a great non-competitive fun environment as well. So I think that's another thing that people should think
But
about.
competitive.
But competitive.
Yeah, I'm not against. I'm not against exactly. I'm not against competitiveness at all. But I think there's a fine line.
Yeah, it's when you make it competitive against yourself and not competitive against somebody else. I think that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Fiona, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of park run actually, is you're only competing with your own time last week, and all the metrics that you get on that website are based around what was your previous time, on what date, when did it happen, so it's exclusively based on what you did yourself. And just to say what Orla was saying there as well, like I think getting them in at that age where they have developed a comfort with it, because when they get to that teenage stage, like walk into a club and start a new sport, are you crazy? Like that's never going to happen. And even if it does, it's a massive step to go from not doing something. Like my own daughter now is in 4th year, and all summer, like when school finished, she had been out of school for a good few months just after COVID and everything, and she was dying to do something this summer. And she said, if I go into something now, I'm going to be the only person who has no clue what they're doing. So there is I think the problem is that there's brilliant stuff for kids, for starting, for the basics, for doing the bare basics. But if you're a teenager and you want to start, where do you start? Where's the starting point? And what I would love to see is that there's a filter and more communication between schools and clubs, because in school, you have to do it. There's that, to get over the embarrassment, you have to do it. It's happening in PE. You're doing a 6-week course in badminton. Doesn't matter if you make a fool out of yourself, because everyone is forced into it. Everyone has to go out and do laps of the pitch, or everyone has to start a new sport. And if there was a filter into clubs, I would love to see that there was a continuous taking on of beginner sessions. I mean, as a 42-year-old, having just started jiu-jitsu, I'm going in at the bare basic. Going up to a CrossFit gym, I'm going in at the bare basic to start my Olympic lifting again, and just do the simplest movements. But for teenagers, there's nothing. When I went looking for something for her to do for the summer, there was nothing. There was nothing.
Good point.
Cork Sports Partnership did quite a good spread of teenage intro to sports over. It was earlier on in the year. I assisted in like a Olympic lifting taster. They did wakeboarding tasters. They did wall climbing tasters, and I thought it was brilliant. It was to the transition year students, and they did it for women as well. But I thought it was really good that they targeted the teenage girls for that as well. It was just that introduction to stuff, and they got to choose which sports they wanted to try. So well done them, I think, for that. I don't know if it hit down in Clonakilty. Was it more Cork City?
Yeah, I didn't see it over the summer. I mean, during the school year, it wouldn't have worked. But during the summer, when they were looking for something to do, I would love to have seen something then, And it just made me think. It kind of made me think, okay, well, what can I start developing for next year? What can I open the doors for next year?
And Fiona, because look, we'll just take cities, and we just take, even though I know you were saying West Cork, so more rural towns and things like that. And obviously there's a massive disadvantage, I would think, probably for girls as well, living in the more rural towns, because it's less opportunities for them.
Yeah, like look, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's GA, but again, if I asked Alana to go out and start up the GA club, she'd be saying, but sure, they've all been doing it since they were 5. And she didn't want to do it when she was that age. So for her to go and start that, now, to be fair, she was going to start jiu-jitsu with me, but she got an ear piercing. She couldn't. But the selection of things to do were small. Rugby isn't on during the summer season. And again, you know, that's very inclusive, and start at the beginning. Let's get everybody together. But if you want to join a sport at the age of 14 or 15, you are joining 4 or 5 years behind in skill development. So, you know, I think having more options for beginners at that age in local areas, I think would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah, so like, do clubs need to look at kind of like almost a Coach to 5K program that is targeted at teenagers, maybe, or something like that, like an option, I suppose?
But like, I don't even know if Couch to 5K, if I said to Alana, now going away out and run your 5K, like she used to do park run with me, but that in her head, that would be a step too far. If it was an athletic skills development, you know, 0 to hero, hand-eye coordination, the basic stuff, and a bit of crack, I think that would definitely be definitely be good. Like, what are the things we do in the leaders coaching courses with athletics and with triathlon, the very basic skills. There's an awful lot of kids who can't ride a bike, lads.
Yeah.
You know, so even simple things like that. You know, cycling and.
I think something like multi-sport. You touched on it. It's something like a multi-sport training camp for 8 weeks. You know, is perfect, I think.
Yeah, I think women. There's a crowd like Women in Sport in the UK. They did something similar there before, where they actually set up just like that now, groups for young girls. You know, when they did a survey of them, like loads of them just didn't feel confident. They didn't think they were good enough. And I suppose that comes again from trying to find the balance. And when you're coaching people from a young age, is to, like, you know, the encouragement that you give somebody is going to instill confidence as they go on. You know, you talk to some girls who like that now would say, would you take up running? I'm no good at it. That's exactly what they'll say. I'm not good at this. I'm not going to do it. They're afraid to put themselves out there or embarrass themselves if they went out playing a sport that had some like equipment, like, you know, like a hockey stick, or if they had like that, no coordination. There's that fear that they'll and especially I suppose nowadays as well, you've got social media throwing in there, that there's the fear that somebody will post something online. But they did that in the UK, where they did like just girls only groups, and like I think about 70% of these girls went on then to, you know, go back into participating in sport again, because they were after getting the confidence. And I suppose that comes back to, like, you know, like your women, some girls prefer only training with girls. I suppose even in school level, when you have mixed schools, you've got that in with the boys. Some girls might be too embarrassed, or, you know, to kind of put themselves out there, or, you know, make a fool of themselves in front of the boys, and that can hold them back as well, rather than, you know, maybe in an all-girls school that mightn't happen so much, where you'd have everyone's, you know, all girls are on the same boat. So you've probably got that element with the teenage years, depending on where they're in school and stuff as well. But I definitely think that, you know, bringing people on from a younger age group as well, it's about having the right sport for your kid. And it comes back to the scheduling, but you also have, I suppose, more now than you didn't have before when we were growing up. I find is that you've got the pushy parents who have their kids playing every sport or participating in every activity under the sun, which is inevitably going to lead to dropout. Because you've got people doing something that they have absolutely zero interest in. So what you want to find is, you want to find a choice for your daughter, who something that she likes. You know, it mightn't be something that you're interested in, because you do find that you find parents trying to live their sporting dreams through their kids because they were into that. You know, as in that they could be on the sidelines and pushing them into sports that they have zero interest in. And you see it, Damien, probably down in some of the clubs. I see it in the boys, where you've got kids who just do not want to be there, and it's very hard to keep those kids motivated. Like I had it with my eldest, who he gave up GA for about, I'd say, 3.5 years. He did other sports, but I remember he came to me, he's like, I don't want to go anymore, I hate it. So I was like, no problem. And he actually came back to me a few years later and said, can I go back? you know, and it's like, of course you can, no problem. But I do find that you do have parents who are pushing their kids into, like, you could talk to people who might have
100%.
6 activities going on every day of the week, and like it's like they're only kids. I would as an adult, I wouldn't undertake the activities that they're. So why are we putting that kind of pressure on kids to do the same? Like ultimately, you're not going to be able to perform at them all because you're going to have burnout, you're going to have exhaustion, and then ultimately, when the girls do come to an age where they're going to choose, they could be so fed up with everything. Plus, they've made different, you know, their friends might be involved in one sport or given up, and girls do tend to follow their groups. I actually only spoke with a father this morning who was giving out about his daughter who wanted to give up GA, and it was like, do you mind me asking, you know, it's like, I'm literally talking about this tonight, why is she giving up? It's like, oh, all her friends are, none of her friends want to play anymore. So basically, even though she may have actually liked the sport, you know, some of her really good friends, like the social scene, and this girl is in first year in school, so that's, you know, that's where that's where the mind is at. You know, it's like, I'm coming here, some of my buddies aren't there, I'm not enjoying it. Of course, it's going to be an absolute trudge for them to come to training then every week. So I do think that definitely parents need to be a little bit more mindful of what's going on in their kids' lives. And again, what a girl has more than a boy has is you've got a period every month as well there, where you're going to have hormones and tiredness as well thrown in there, and those kind of factors do need to be built in around people's training and stuff as well, which is something that would never have come into the equation when we were growing up. It was just get out there and get on with it. Whereas I think people do need to be more mindful of that, and especially, like, you know, if you need to try and find activities that your kids are genuinely, you know, interested. There's no point in signing them up for something that they really, really dislike. Obviously you don't want them giving up everything, but I think there is a balance there between, you know, do they really need to be doing all of these activities, and pick something that they're more likely to stick at, because that's what you want. Like that's a win for me if my kids are like me, you know, older through life and still involved or engaged in sport. Like, you want them to hit the teenage years, you want to get through the teenage years with still having some level of physical activity as well. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something.
Sandra, you touched on something a while ago, which was social media. All right. And I think a big subject, I think from Richie, really from kind of teenager years upwards, is the subject of body shaming in women and stuff like that. And this comes down to social media. It becomes in, you know, even more so, even in closer quarters and things like that. Again, is this a kind of a more education thing that people need? Fiona, I'll go to you if you have any.
Yeah, I think, look, I think it's not the only factor. A big thing that I see is that people don't want to engage in a sport because, well, if I'm going running, I have to wear lycra. Oh Jesus, I'd never get on a bike, I'd never fit into the cycling gear, you know, this kind of thing. I'm not going up the street wearing those clothes. And again, it comes back to what Orla was saying about wearing white. You know, you don't need a specific uniform to feel comfortable running. You know, this idea that you can only wear a crop top because of social media, you can only wear a crop top if you have a fat stomach and some semblance of a six pack, or you can only wear shorts if you don't have cellulite. And like, you see all these ads telling women how to get rid of cellulite. I went for a sports massage one day on a on a cycling holiday, and the masseuse basically was like, you know, your diet must be really bad. Your cellulite is terrible. And I was like, I was on the bed, just flabbergasted, like going, what the hell is happening here? Am I in an alternative universe or what? And I mean, I really don't care. I figure I've seen friends when I was a teenager who were race thin with cellulite, and I have friends who are in much larger bodies with no cellulite. So body size isn't actually an indicator of the presence or the absence of cellulite. I don't think it's something that's bad. I don't think it's something that's disgusting. It's just a part of our body, just like skin is, just like hair is, just like our eyes are. And if we have this constant barrage of ads telling us how to get rid of stuff, how to get rid of your body fat, how to get rid of marks on your skin, how to get rid of scars, well, we must want to get rid of them because they're horrible, right? So we start feeding into that kind of dialogue, and it's rubbish. It's just made up, you know. So I think that plays a very, very big part. You know, and an awful lot of what I see from the women I work with is they get compliments when they've lost weight. They get compliments when, and those social circles that they're in, they get compliments when they only eat a salad. They get compliments. So their behavior, their outward appearance, everything that's to do with making them smaller is complimented. And we're kind of trying to shift that narrative all the time, to the point where if someone in the family says, comments on somebody's legs, my daughter will turn around and say, why did you have to say that? They didn't ask you for your opinion. So, you know, she's starting to kind of recognize these little comments being made and go, no, you know, we don't have that. And my younger son is as well, you know. So I think, again, it does have to come from the top. It does have to come from parents in a household. It does have to come from coaches. And like, one of my very top values is culture, and it's up to us to create a culture in our households, and it's up to us to create a culture in our clubs of acceptance of everybody, regardless of their shape, size, anything else. And I'd love to see the conversation shift from what people look like to how people are feeling and how people are performing, because that's what sport is about, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you say, oh, that person doesn't look like a triathlete, but they'll get in the water and they will absolutely floor you in the swim. They'll get on the bike, they'll be to the top of every single hill ahead of you, and you'd be like, how have you passed me again on the run? You know, and you'd have people saying, oh, that person's not a triathlete because they look a certain way, and it's rubbish, you know.